I always want to start by showing something that's going to distract you from me. So before I introduce myself, I just want a little takeaway that has nothing to do with, I don't even remember the title of my piece, Beyond Google, and it's something with a lot of C's. I got excited about the alliteration of curating and conversations and content and conversations. Instagrok, I found on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. People were posting about how exciting it was as a search engine. And I understand that from looking at the sea of faces, that there are a number of folks who I have an affinity for and with because of being a library media specialist in the past. So I recognize a number of you. I also understand that anybody who's in education is interested in finding good information. And so this is an interesting new search engine because it has a couple of functionalities that are very different. So again, if you're coming in late, this has nothing to do with my talk, but it's just such a good takeaway that I couldn't help it. Okay, and then I'll introduce myself. Somebody over at Woodstock explained to me that grok was from, do you guys remember that? Strange in a Strange Land? Because I wasn't sure if it was an actual verb. But what it's doing is it's a search engine, so I'm going to search the topic that I'm going to be using in my presentation today. And it's grokking, so it takes just a minute. Love that verb. It also gives me a prompt that on my Mac, it doesn't particularly like to be on my Mac, so it might do something funky with Firefox. But if I'm on my Mac with other browsers, it could be OK. And look what happens in the front here. So those of you who know Visual Thesaurus or any of those mapping tools get to see that it's almost like Google Wonder Wheel in this sense. The centerpiece is here, and then anything else that shoots out that is related to that. So you can refine that search. And then we get some key facts over here. And these little icons are little pins. So if I'm interested in keeping some of these key facts, and I've logged in with a free account, I'll pin here, and when I click on Journal, it'll have taken that information over there and stacked it up in a linear way for me so I can go back next. Excuse me. Ooh, I like that. That was a good one. Notice what else comes back for me in terms of this search. I've got websites, videos, images, quizzes. Quizzes, that's interesting how it comes up from just a search, right? Get your librarian brains and your critical thinking brains on there. I'm not sure how relevant and connected those are, but I might be interested in going through that. Again, I can save that pin and have all these other formats, but you might have not seen this little icon bar up here. It's very interesting to me. So here's Einstein, and then over to the left is this ABC chalkboard. It lands squarely in the center, but if I move forward, things change, key facts change based on readability. Now, I haven't taken the time to go behind the scenes to see what the algorithm is that's getting that to come through. Nor have I seen whether the facts that do come through are very good. I'm just excited about that control. And then I remember after seeing it the first time driving home and then thinking, what was that icon on the other side? So there's designers. So there's Einstein, and then there's, when I want to go lower or this way for you guys. So it's that ABC chalkboard. I love the idea that students can start driving some of their own searching based on their needs. I think that's really fabulous. Okay. So now to the official stuff. On the other side, we have a tinyurl.com. And so that will allow you to get to the wiki page that I was using. And we're going to define together what I think curation means and what people are maybe saying when they speak about curation, okay, out there on the web in terms of what we're doing. But I had such a struggle with trying to figure out how I was going to curate the resources I was pulling together for today. How do I curate my curation resources? I love that whole meta thing, but there are so many tools now. And I went back to a wiki because that allows me, in terms of a presentation, to have some static information. Static in the sense that it's going to stack up in the way that I'd like you to be able to revisit at times and come back to it. So I'm presenting on a wiki. And I've collected some resources, and I pulled them together for you. So in a sense, I'm curating, if you will. But we'll define that together. That's the shorter way to get to that. Okay, so if you haven't gone to it yet, you can go through that tiny URL. The other thing that I want to set up for you right now is, if you're tweeting, folks I think at this point know that they're tweeting in a couple of ways, but one of them I saw in the beginning was Vermont Ed. So that hashtag Vermont Ed, and that's going to go up to a larger community. Is anybody using something smaller, or is it staying within that big stream? Okay.
Vermont Tech too.
On Vermont Tech? Okay, good. VTED. And we'll look a little bit at Twitter for what that means in a minute. Maybe in 15. Okay. But I also want to set up a Today's Meet back channel. And Ryan, I had thought about doing that. Ryan Becker presented here earlier today about using Twitter in his classroom, in his science classroom, and his resources are just like fabulous work. And he was using Today's Meet from behind the scene as well. So let me set it up for you, and then I'll explain what it is. Okay, but it's going to allow the folks in this room to have a conversation with yourselves during this presentation. And then after, when I have a chance to look back at it, I'll get to be involved in that conversation as well. Okay, so what I'm doing is I just went to todaysmeet.com. You'll be doing that too, but you'll have to type in a little bit of extra information. So I'm todaysmeet.com, and I'm going to create a room. You don't create the room, you just watch me. I'm going to name it DL, and then I'm also going to put curate in there, DL curate. I want to keep it alive for 12 hours, and then I'm going to create it. What's going to happen for you is when you come back in here, you're going to type in todaysmeet.com / uppercase D, uppercase L, curate. And then it'll allow you to just type in your name, and you can do it however you'd like. If I'm with students, I usually like them to at least give me their last name, because the first time I tried this and they created fake names, we had a few problems. Just a few. I'm going to say welcome, and I'm going to emphasize that. Okay. This should now start to stack up, and if anybody would like to join that conversation, you'll see that there will be comments and potentially questions. So nice, I like that. Cool. We should have timed that. That's perfect. As if it's a whiteboard, right? But it's also a place if you have questions that you don't feel comfortable stopping me in the middle of my quick streaming, let me get everything in a short period of time presentation style. But also if you have anything else that you'd like to elaborate on, because you can add links to this. So if you have a YouTube video or a website that you think would speak to something, somebody's posted a question or I've just said something and you want to elaborate on that, when you paste that into this message box, it becomes a hot link immediately here. Okay. So effectively, I've just given you lots of different things that you can do while you pay attention to the content of this conversation up here. So I'm going to expect that you can task shift well. I know that I'm 100% certain that you can do that. So what I mean by that is that when I'm going over something like, look at delicious and how I can use it to search, and you already use delicious in your own practice, and you know it by heart, you have lots of other things that you can do. You can search my wiki. Please, if you're listening to any of the Prezis or the presentations that have any voice, just turn that down now, okay? So that it's not distracting other people in the back. But I want very much for you to participate with the resources. But then when I start to shift into something else that you haven't seen, Scoop It or Paperly, I'd like you to re-attend, okay? And then right now I'd like you to think about whether you can do that with your students. It is fun. Please.
Yes.
You got to?
I can't get to the today's meet. Did you say backslash or forward slash?
I might have said forward. I might have said black, but it's.
I don't. Yeah, I see it right there. .com. Got it. Got the .com. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Content curation. Okay, I'm Susan Hennessey, former library media specialist, former English teacher, worked for Tarrant Institute for Innovative Education for this year. So it's my first year out of a school, 5 years out of the direct classroom, but being the librarian and being a maven, as I was so told by one of the science teachers. And when I first heard that, I thought, does that make me really old? That's such a connotation for me. But what he really meant was that I'm somebody who connects. So the idea of getting resources and then getting them out to somebody in a way that's effective for that person's information need and that person's style, and knowing that he or she will come back to it is really important for me. Okay, so I love having lots of different tools. I also just get jazzed with sharing. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of us are here too. So here's a tool. I used to use Picnic a lot, P-I-K-N-I-C, and then it went away. It didn't really go away, but it's in Google now, somewhere from behind the scenes. Picnic allows you to just take an image, and then you can easily pop text over that. You don't have to have an account. You can just open it up on the web, upload it, add text, a few funny things, and then go forward. So I just came across, because that one went away, befunky.com. I wish I could click on something and get off it. Be funky. And The other thing I tried to do is to use Flickr with Creative Commons from behind the scenes. So I went to Flickr to find my images, and Morgfile. I always forget about Morgfile, but Morgfile is great out there because it's photos that you can do anything with, and there's no concern about copyright. Okay? So then very easily just put in some language up there. We're going to go on down through. We're going to define together what we mean, or what at least I mean right now by curation for today's topic. I'm scrolling a little bit quickly, but then remember Google was in my title? We're going to talk a little bit about beyond Google, using these curation tools, after we defined it, to search, to find information for your students' needs, for your own needs, even before you start to put them together in a package that's effective for others. Okay, how do we use it as a search tool? And then we'll come on down, and then we'll look at what it means when you curate and you ask your students to start curating for themselves, start collecting information for themselves. Okay, so that's sort of the trajectory for today. Who is this?
The old way.
Isn't it? I made Sarah Palin as a Vokey. And she's got a little bit of a southern accent, and I'll have to replay it so we can start with that. That'll come in a little bit. But my husband told me after I showed him this, he said, I always thought you looked a little bit like Sarah Palin. It's really bad. All right. So curation. Let me make that bigger for people to see. Here's a link that I came across when I was trying to define this term for myself, from what's called an open letter to everyone using the word curate incorrectly on the web, on the internet. If anything has ever moved me to punch my fist through my computer screen, it's the recent gross misappropriation of the word curate. She goes on to say, I love that image. Just stop it. What makes a curator? This seems up for interpretation, but what it is not, and this is from a museum resource, what it is not just creating a list. What it is not not going out to Pinterest, which is a fabulous site, and just pinning something because you like it. Okay, so what, in the context of education, curating is pulling a bunch of resources together for a specific need and a specific audience. But it's not just list making. Okay, there's context around it. And one of the reasons I get so jazzed by it is because I feel like I'm telling a story. It feels very creative to me. There's a narration involved in trying to put some pieces of information together in a way that's meaningful. I want my students to be able to do that too. Out on Twitter, I chose to use the hashtag curate just to see what people were putting out there for that. And in this stream, online curating is just anxiety wrapped in pomposity. Maybe I am just full of myself. Let's see if we can get this to play.
The same amount of information that we now create in 2 days, according to Google's Eric Schmidt. How do we deal with this information overload? Curation may be the answer. And so curation companies and tools are popping up all over the internet. In addition to our Facebook profiles, Twitter accounts, and blogs, we're now asked to use yet more tools to highlight the content we find important, fun, and interesting. This has 2 negative consequences. First, it simply adds to the information overload, but more critically, it limits our worldview. No matter how intelligent and insightful our friends are, individual curation doesn't expose us to enough new and different information, like both sides of a political issue. We get stuck in what author Eli Pariser calls filter bubbles. We don't get a full picture of what is happening in the world around us. What we need is a place to aggregate everyone's content, and tools to pick out and organize the best information. What we need is something we call collective curation. When we act collectively, our seemingly small actions, sharing a link or tagging a few photos, make a real impact, because our efforts are multiplied by the contributions of others. By combining our diverse perspectives and local insights, we can better understand the things we all care about, and collectively transform information overload into a rich mosaic of knowledge.
Collaborative. I want my students to do this. Okay, so everything from now on, I want my students to be able to do. Okay, whether they're in the 4th grade or whether they're adults. I want my students to be able to have the tools to search and pull together some information for themselves. And when I think about inquiry and how we're trying to do project-based learning in lots of ways that are really engaging, and we know that we have to find and help kids find information, we need to have them be independently be able to do this for themselves. Okay? Do we all agree with that? Am I making some of that up? Okay. I really want them all to be able to do this on a level that's important for them. So I want to make sure that I keep coming back to that. Okay, keep me honest. So one of the search tools that I use when I'm trying to look for information, especially for things like today, I used all the tools I'm going to show you to pull these tools together. So it's that meta thing again. I go out to Prezi all the time now. I didn't want to make a Prezi for this. I just went to Prezi.com, went to Explore, and I typed in curate, curation, collection. And then it takes a little bit, but I go through and I find some people who have already pulled together fabulous presentations. And then I make sure that you have a link to that, so I'm making this attribution. Or what's nice about Prezi is as a presentation tool, I can hit copy, and I can pull that down and I can make changes on that presentation. So I find great content like that all the time. Why wouldn't we do that with our kids? Teachers and others are putting together fabulous presentations, and there's lots of really good information out there. Seen this image often. Getting information off the internet is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant, and then you go further in on that Prezi. This is this digital curation and defining it together, but I just wanted you to see in terms of defining curation again, what is it? We're in a museum, the person in charge of a museum, art collection, etc. But then what is digital curation and who does that? That's a nice Prezi for you to take a look at and take back. Okay, so we're switching. Why be on Google? Search terms, searching together. So let's do it. I'm going to go on out to Google and showcase 3 little advanced things that happen. Not going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out to Safari because for some reason I can't update Firefox, and Firefox won't use some of the advanced settings on my Mac. I don't know why, and it won't let me update. We'll figure that out. I'll figure that out at some point. So I'm going to use Safari as a browser to search. And I'm just going to Google. Okay. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to think about being a 7th grader in a humanities class and interested in child soldiers. Okay. So here I am. It's the first day of the project. Now, if I had great librarians, might I do that?
If you were listening to your great
I might want to do that, right? I'm going to make it fun for them. Okay. So I've already got lots of hits, and we know how that works. Google search the advanced search used to live right under here, right? So now they have it at the bottom, and then they also keep it in this little settings tab. And I'm not sure why they do that. I don't particularly like that they hide that. So I want my child soldiers, and then I want to show you down here a couple of things that I can do to drive Google, and if I'm a student, I should know how to do this as well. I can, in terms of reading level, do this drop down, and I can tell Google that any of these searches should come back with a certain level. I want it to annotate in terms of reading levels, or I want it to show only basic results, or intermediate results, or more advanced results. Okay. Very, very simple. A 4th grader should really be considering this when he or she goes out to take a look at that. And so what's going to come up is Scholastic Magazine, or all these resources that. Remember Instagrok, where the kid could drag across like that? I want the kid to be able to do this here. This isn't as fancy, but here's the other thing that I'd like students to be able to do. See this file type right here? So I want to be able to say that if I'm interested in child soldiers, I do want websites. I do want some text. But I might also want to find out what's out there for PowerPoints, PPT, or what's out there for Google Earth. Because some teachers have already probably put together some really interesting tours on Google Earth for child soldiers. Okay. So when that happens, I will say, let's just limit it to that. Anything that comes up should be a KML or a KMZ file. And if I have Google Earth on my computer, I click on it and it's going to open it up in there. Or if I click on PPT, it's going to come back as a PowerPoint. Or there's Flash. so I can just get flash movies. Right? So not only should kids have a sense of the range of what comes back to them in terms of content, they should also have format choice too. I can. So what I did is an advanced search, which I found under the little settings wheel. So advanced search, there's the topic. And then when I come down to the bottom, I have these choices: file type and reading level. And I can drop down. Okay. All right. Folks know about RSS, potentially, the idea that something, you can connect to something so that it'll stream in and often, and it'll change. There are ways for me to be able to tap into things that change a lot. So right now on my wiki, I'm going to have what I think is going to be content that's going to stay there and is going to be static. I'm linking you to websites that don't necessarily change. But I might want to go out there when I'm doing some research on child soldiers and see what's happening and changing fairly often. So I want to tap into RSS. Well, Google can let me do. There's a number of ways to do this, but this one that I want to highlight because I don't think about it a lot, and then after the fact I get mad at myself. Google Alert. So Google can tell me something new has just been posted out there, and it can send that alert to me in my email. And then I can shut it off at the end of the 2 weeks of my research. Okay, so I might be inundated for 2 weeks, but that might be something that I'm interested in having stream into me. So that's hidden back here. So I'm looking for child soldiers. I hit on more. I come on down to even more. And then it's down in the lower left-hand side here, Google Alerts, that little alarm bell. And then what I can do is my search query, which is child soldiers. And then I can tell it what I want. Do I want videos? Do I want discussions? Do I want blogs? Do I just want websites? How often do I want an email alert? And do I really only want the best results? Yes, please. Why would you give? Is that a weird choice? I can't bear that. And how do you know, Google? Well, that gets me mad. But it gives you a section here. Now, again, some people would balk and say, I can't, I'm inundated with emails. That's crazy. But why wouldn't I use a free tool that could stream some of that and then just choose not to click on it sometimes as I go? All right, I'm in 7th grade. My parents are saying, no, you really can't do that. I'm not quite sure what's going to be coming in. So I understand the ages of the kids in doing that. But I certainly, as his librarian or his teacher, could set that up from behind the scenes for me to be aware of what's going on. Okay, now. So I'm stealing from Ms. Valenza, Joyce Valenza. So those of you who don't know her, I'm surprised, but in the library world, she's huge. She has great hair, too. She published this article a couple years ago, I think, in School Library Journal, and she says this: students and teachers can exploit the curation efforts already out there. I'm trying to showcase that today. In fact, the new curation tools present an exciting new genre of search tool, a tool for scanning the real-time environment as well as opportunities for evaluating quality and relevance in emerging information landscapes. So she's pushing the envelope, and she was doing that a couple years ago to say, how can students be part of this? And what she does on this nice blog post is she introduces different tools. So there's Scoop It, we'll look at that today. Library guides. Great LibGuides, wonderful, powerful pathfinders that teachers and librarians have created that are out there that you can search. I won't be doing that with you. Delicious stacks, we will look at those today. We'll make one together. Pearl trees, really interesting, but I haven't played a lot with those. So this is a good one to keep coming back to. And LiveBinder, I know we have a number of people who have created LiveBinders, and Bonnie, you've made one for PLNs, is that true? And really fabulous stuff. I wonder if we can post that on this wiki. Okay. Will you remind me? Or invite you to it? Okay. So good resources to come back to. Okay. And then there she is again, a little bit later. And this is called Digital Collection Curation. So she's created one of these LibGuides, library guides. It looks a lot like LiveBinder, and basically it reminds us that we used to have those drawers that you could pull out and you would have those folders stacked up like that. It works in that way. Okay. Lots of resources embedded down in here that help define that, and then it allows you to come on through and see some of these tools. We're going to look at Netvibes today, but not page flakes. So if you're interested in dashboards, you want to come back and see what she's got here. Many, many teachers are using Symbaloo as a search tool because it's visual and it's neat to organize, and younger kids seem to love it. We're going to look at Paperly, but not Storify. So make sure you come back here. I should give you time to do that, shouldn't I? I'm just going to keep talking.
Netvibes is really expensive, to buy if you wanted to do it to create your own.
I remember looking into that. It was expensive, wasn't it?
400 to 600, I can't remember. It's maybe $600.
For the year, for a subscription to be able to create them. Wow. But you can go out and search for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you do Google and the Child Soldiers and then LibGuides, you could find it that way. Thank you for that. Okay. Delicious, Mighty Bell, Netvibes, Paperly, and Twitter. All in 4 minutes. Delicious. So, Delicious is a social bookmarking site. Been using it for a long time. People got scared a while back because it was supposed to go away, so people then transitioned over to Delicious. It allows you to, online, in the cloud, keep all of your favorites, and then organize them by tags. By tags. That's so great. So remember the folders? It could only go in one folder before. Well, now it can go in multiple folders because I can become a librarian and I can think of cross-referencing. Tags are allowing me to do that, right? So I can index and cross-reference in that way, which is really fabulous. And then I can find other people who are doing the same thing. And then I can share that with them where they can come and find me. So that link brings you into my favorites folder, and then you can see along the right-hand side what I've been doing. Look, since 2008. Doesn't that feel like a long time ago? Oh my gosh. So I moved all of these over to Digo when we thought that Delicious was going away, but then Delicious was bought by the YouTube guys. And so they're trying to now make it much more social, and they're turning it into what they're allowing us to do is to create stacks. Basically what that means for me is anywhere, anytime I can go and find my favorites folder and I can share. Because isn't that what I do and what we do? Oh my gosh, I gotta show you something. I pull Delicious up, find it. Okay, so we'll do that together to create a stack in just a sec. For those of you who haven't seen Delicious before, each one of these is a link out into something that I've added to this. And then I come up with these. Okay? So what I did was I made a tag for today, DL12. So anything that's on my wiki site or anything else that I've found, I've got that there. And I can remember that, I was at Dynamic Landscapes in 2012. I kind of remember the context of where I remember hearing it, but I sometimes don't remember names. So it's good for me to tag in that way. It means nothing to you probably, but that's okay. Right? So I'm happy to share and then see. I can also network with a whole bunch of people over here. So let's look at a stack. A little more fancy, a little more visual. What happens is I can come in and I can curate from all of my favorites. So all those bookmarks that I've saved for all those years, I come in and I think, wow, I'm really interested in personal learning networks. And I happen to have a whole bunch of things that I've created and kept there under PLN. And all I have to do is check them off, and suddenly they come in a stack that I can send to somebody. I've got a Pathfinder now. I just have to give them the URL to that. So if I'm interested in PLNs, people can come directly to that stack. They would just take that URL, and then they get to see it laid out in kind of a visually, sometimes appealing way. Okay.
So that you make the pictures are part of one of their template choices. And that's not something you can do on Digo?
That's not something I've seen that you can do on Digo yet. Not in this kind of stacking way.
Okay. And the difference would be before you could have typed in personal learning networks, your tag, and you would have gotten them there.
All linked, lined up linear with just the blue hyperlink to the title.
Okay. Instead of
Stacks and visually, potentially,
okay, so a little bit different.
and giving credit to.
I see. Okay.
Okay. And then look at this little thing. So suddenly we can have a conversation, right? Because what it is under each one of those boxes, that's a link out to one of the things that I said was a favorite, allows people who are coming to my stack to comment. And I can comment back. And we can do something with that information. That's really neat. That's social collection, right? The collective curation of tools. Okay. Flipbook. So let's see if we can create one real fast. All free.
What is your Delicious?
STHENNES. STHENNES. It's called content curation. I'm going to add saved links. So there's a green button on the bottom that asked which did I want. I'm going to type in that tag DL12. And then I'm going to select all because I already did the work of putting them in tags, in a folder, if you will. Add selected stack. I can come through and edit if I've doubled up anything, if I wanted to change anything. And I'm going to publish it. What I want to do is change the, why, please try again. Because we're live. Let's save it first then. Okay. So now this is another takeaway for you. If you'd rather see the resources that I've got on the wiki with a few others around curation, you can come to this stack instead of going back to my wiki page. Okay? And you can comment on each one of those.
Can you show when you're on Delicious how you can follow someone? Because I'm on right now and I want to follow you. Not sure how to do that.
You know, I haven't done it since they've taken over and changed.
I know, and I can't find it. It used to be really easy.
If you search, is it like on Ego, so you can do it that way?
You know,
Follow, so we can follow.
we might have to find tools down below there. I'm wondering if I can give somebody else that task while I'm going forward with that, and then we can come back and answer that, okay? Just in terms of time, but I think that's a neat way to do that. I didn't want my bookmarks to get too kind of, so I only network with 2 other people, so whenever this person who works up in the, I'm not going to tell you his name because then I'll lose my rights to all these cool tools and you'll get them before you come to my conferences. But I really like what he bookmarks, and so it'll pop up like that. I open it up more to other people, but please follow me in that sense, but that would be nice to know. Okay, so that's Delicious, and that's how Delicious works in terms of content curation like that.
Quick question, so those of us who moved to Ego and have, been using it, is there a way to import?
Right back.
Do you know?
Go back.
Yeah, to go back. 'Cause this was-
I don't know, and you know what I
Okay,
do?
no.
I don't know, but I use both, and it
Okay.
Yeah.
ticks me off every time that I have to.
Okay.
The reason I would use Digo instead of Delicious, though, and people have seen this, that it's so easy to share with a group. So if I know that a whole bunch of people are Vermont teachers are collecting iPad apps, I'm in that group, and every time I add something to my bookmarks, I just click on that, and it sends to that list. And then it sets up very easily in my email that I get an email once a week that says, something's been added to this.
And it's also connected to your Twitter.
It can connect to my Twitter. Yep. I haven't done that yet.
That's what I'm wanting to do.
Oh, great, great. Mighty Bell. This one might be new to you. So these, again, are tools that allow people to do curating, which means with that kind of collection. This is in beta right now, so I'm just going to, I listened to a webinar a couple weeks ago and got the invite to this. Those of you who are familiar with Nings, they're like Facebook, but we can control them. We can use them for education, set that up where kids can have their own pages, and then you have places to have conversations. Gina blah 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 blah, I cannot remember her last name, who started Ning, now has moved over to Mighty Bell. So this is her new product. And the first version of Mighty Bell set it up so that people could come together and there would be a space. She created this one called Mighty Bell Hearts Teachers. Mighty Bell loves teachers, and so people have come together to work on this. The space is kind of like the stack in Delicious. Okay, it's that kind of content thing that I'm interested in. Another one that I joined from people who are working within this platform is the Best of TED Talks. I love TED, but I get overwhelmed because there are so many fabulous ones and I really want other people in the world who might be really interesting to tell me which ones I should spend time with. You know, there's only so many times where I can turn on a TED Talk and exercise, or while I'm cooking. You know, maybe once a weekend. So once a week, I gotta find somebody who's telling me that this is good. So what's happened with Mighty Bell is the people who are in this, okay, I can click on the members and then I can see who they happen to be. And if I'm interested in Mark, I'll come on over and then I can see some of his other spaces that he's created. Tea for beginners, really? This one is wonderful. We love group inspiration. You know those rabbit holes you go down? I go down lots of rabbit holes in this new one. It's part because it's visual. It's part because I'm finding these things that people are pulling together. Remember, each one of these boxes brings me out to Kickstarter and these group, social, powerful, collaborative, altruistic groups. It's really hard. As a former English teacher, humanities teacher, I was always assigning books that were just existential, like horror. And I remember a number of years ago, a kid came up to me and said, "Can we read something that's like pleasant? Like that shows that humanity isn't just in this morass of negativity." And I'm like, I don't think so. I worked really hard. I could find some short stories for him, but it was really actually a troubling. And he was stuck in this because of his religion, and he was really trying to act and live a Christian life, and was having a hard time when he was coming up against this in art. He couldn't kind of put those two things together. I wish I had this now. I would show him all of this. What we're doing with social collaboration is just beyond fabulous. Okay, back to the quick tool. The other part that works in this, let me go back to the teacher's one. Whoops, that one, this is what I'm starting. We'll do the TED. Once somebody's put something in here, you see the person who's collected it. Okay, so there's that attribution there, and then there are that place for conversation. So this is where I get excited about using Mighty Bell with students. There's the TED Talk, and then underneath here, somebody's asked a question. It's a threaded discussion, and I'm allowed to become part of that conversation. So applications for me, I think about when I work with teachers and when I work with students. If they're doing a project, they're doing some kind of research, and they need to have a space to put this together in, and especially if they're working in a group, 3 of them come together, they start adding to this. They have conversations right in there underneath each resource about that resource. They invite me as the teacher collaborator. I add some things, and what we can do together in this is you can favorite each one of those that moves up to the featured box. So let me show you what that looks like on the top here. These on the top are the featured posts. So I might be able to say, this is your own personal learning plan in your group or as an individual. We've come together in this week to decide that we have all these great resources. Well, we're going to now negotiate together as you're going to, in the next 2 weeks, work with these top posts. We'll keep adding down below, and if something rises to the top because it's so good, let's put it up there. Wow. That's pretty neat, isn't it? Of course, it all has to be electronic, but you can scan things in, and almost everything goes into these boxes, whether it's a Google Doc or... Okay, that's Mighty Bell. It's still free. If anybody would like an invite, will you email me? Yeah. Okay. Because it really, it doesn't cost you anything, and so I'm just going to put my email up here so you can do that, and then I'll invite you. And that's at Gmail. Okay. Can someone help me with the time in terms of when this ends? 2:15. It ends at 2:15?
No.
Holy Mother of God.
Look at your watch.
2:30. Thank you. Okay.
Susan, is it an invitation to do your Mighty Bell or to be in Mighty Bell period?
To be in Mighty Bell, period. I think what will happen is you'll come to my Mighty Bell, and then you can start creating your own spaces.
It's like Pinterest, you have to be invited.
It's like Pinterest, yep. You have to be invited in that way, yeah. So for the sake of time, I just went very quickly into this. Netvibes, like iGoogle, like PageFlakes, is a dashboarding tool. Again, for curation, what it basically means to me is I can find anything that's going to stream in, and instead of having to go in and open tab after tab after tab after tab, I can say to this tool, really what I want is I'm interested in following this blog. I'd like to read the opinion part of the New York Times. I live in Montpelier. I'm probably going to move that, but I love her face so much. Those are from images in Flickr that I have as a Flickr account. And then if I've got some bloggers that I follow, I can see the things that I haven't come to that have added to their page and come back to that when I'm interested. I don't know what
benefits to this besides like an iGoogle page? It
I'll show you, yeah. Because now that I'm thinking about broadening the conversation and inviting people in, that'll be the different part of it. But it works in a very similar way. My delicious tags, so I can come on in and see and use this really quickly, and then my Twitter account, okay, so that I can watch the stream if I want to. So this wouldn't be a bad way for me to think about working with kids. Again, they're working on a topic, child soldiers. What we're going to do is we're going to pull together one of these pages that's going to stream in things that are going to be interesting to you for those 2 weeks. Okay? I don't have a lot of control over everything that streams in, but I do have some control. So the added benefit, value added. I come over to dashboards over here, okay, on the top. So I'm at my site for me, and this can be my page to open if I want to anytime. But I can come and create a new page, and I can create a new dashboard and publish that. So I would like to do it around child soldiers. It likes to get an image for me first, and then it's going to start streaming in some. And we might come back to it if it's taking just a little bit for the sake of time. Is that okay if we do that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's so worth seeing, though.
Why did it choose 16 sources?
I think it's going to be the sources in the sense that it's going to come from Vimeo and YouTube and
Sort of default content.
exactly. Let me just get back to our.
So what you're saying is that's the advantage over iGoogle is that you can create different pages. So
What'll
you can
stream?
have your own page, and then you can have your page from your 5th grade, your 10th grade. Or
Exactly.
okay.
On any topic. And what'll come in is not just websites, but then tabs for things like videos and blog conversations. And I can X out a lot of those things that come in and just have 2 or 3 streaming. And so every day in my class I say, all right, let's check our dashboard, see what's new. What's come in that's current in the conversation that's out there on the web. And then it's their job to do that curation, right? And they have to pick the things that are going to be important and relevant. Huge learning that we want them to have anyway. And it would be a neat experiment to see how that worked for them in control. All right, Paperly, and then we'll come back to just to see if that loaded. Welcome back, how sweet. Oh. Come on. My daughters they're 10, and they play these games on the iPad where you have to take care of whatever's on there, and so you have to buy these little tools, and you have to rub the belly of whatever it is, and then you get to clean it, and it's all this taken care of. So I find myself like, if I just, Strokey, will you come on? What Paperly does is it goes out to Twitter. You set it up, okay, you have to set it up with a Twitter account. You tell it what you're interested in terms of the hashtags. You give it a title, and then everything that is coming in through Twitter from that hashtag that's out there. So if I type in child soldiers, it's going to go out and it's going to bring it back in this interface so it looks like a newspaper. So I know that seems like a lot. In just a second, I'll show you what it looks like when we can search for them. Okay, because I can start my paper here. I'm going to come to my newsstand over here. A whole bunch of them that are out there now that have a lot of use. I mean, a lot of people are starting to come to these curation sites because they think, wow, somebody's really pulling together some interesting things around a topic that I'm interested in. So EdTech Daily is visited often, and it's wonderful, and it keeps updating. So I have my own kind of newspaper here from folks that I recognized from Twitter. This Burlington Mass Principal is doing a ton. And again, it updates. Okay, so once a day it's going to update, and it's my own newspaper. So I don't buy newspapers very much anymore for a number of reasons, because good ones are online, but then I found these good curators, and I love this. So how do we do that for kids? Well, we can either create our own papers or we can search. So I'm literally searching those good curators out there. Now there might not be a paper that's titled that, but there might be one that has some interesting information. Human Trafficking Daily, came across a good one about a day in the life in Africa. And then I might come on down through and start looking at some of these resources. Now, the age of my kids, I might not ever show them this, but I certainly could check it every morning. Already lays it out like that for you. Oh, you want me to pick a picture? I'm going to pick that one. So I'm back in Netvibes. And again, that's that dashboard. And it's child soldiers. It's not showing me that pretty picture that I picked. But it's telling me that it's looking in Google blog search. So all these bloggers. But I can come in and I can edit that out there. I'm not interested in those blogs. Okay. Bing News is over here. I've got some images. This is from Yahoo. But I also, so this is in the news tab. I also have videos. From YouTube, from Vimeo. What's this one? Meta Cafe. And then I can go forward and use that. Okay. So I'll be honest, I actually don't use my own Susan dashboard very often. I started to use that, and then I realized I much preferred having the New York Times come up on the front page when I first turned it on, because otherwise I don't click on it to read it. I just don't give myself enough time, but I enjoy it. So if it's my home page all the time and I don't have distractions, so I'm controlling my information flow doing that. But boy, I love to be able to come here and show students that they can do this. Now, no one's asked me the question that's the million-dollar question, other not whether it costs anything, but if you're 13 and younger, I'm not sure. I don't want to even speak to that because some of them yes and some of them no. Okay, but I can certainly do that with them in my classroom. Okay. I'm not going to open Twitter right now. I'm going to show you examples of how I was able to work with people in Twitter. But this is the key point, coming to the driver's seat. And this is what you've been waiting for. It's going to start in the middle of her, but
as teachers begin to let go of the old way, to relinquish control and allow kids to take responsibility for their own learning, students do need to develop a PLN. As teachers begin to step down from the position of boss of learning, students need the skills and opportunities to learn from and with a wider network of people. How do we help students develop their own PLNs?
I was interested in how the computer is going to recognize PLN. PLNs. So we're going to start calling PLNs now. Foki, look at what she does. Oh, isn't that weird? Oh, Sarah. Free, really fun, great tool for this. Okay. So this is a nice article when you have a chance to come back and look that it doesn't use a lot of technology for kids to come together on PLN, personal learning networks, which is all about networks. Who are you learning from? Well, we just saw a whole bunch of curators that we can steal from, but we can learn from each other too, right, in physical situations. And so she has a nice list of 10 things, along with some technology tools that you can pull together. Students becoming curators of their own information. It's worth clicking on this. It's worth clicking on this. Lots of great information here. One of my favorite bloggers talking about digital curation and kind of running through in a much more cohesive way than I did what we're talking about today, along with some good links. And so she's a wonderful person to come back to. Let's look at specific examples now, okay? I really like these prompt questions, though. She's asking kids to think about that. What tools do I use to curate? Filtering and find quality information, things we've been working on for a long time. All right, so I went out to Prezi, I went out to Paperly, I went out to Delicious, I went out to Scoop It. I just went out to Google and I typed in curation, Pinterest, curation, Delicious, curation, Paperly, and I got to these curated spaces. So I don't even have to go back to those. I just need to know that instead of just searching Google, I search these other curation spaces. Does that make sense? It's a really fast, easy way to do it. Now, it took a while sometimes to scroll down through and say, I found that Pinterest really doesn't lend itself well to lots of this, good, rich information, but these others do. Okay. William Ferreter, who is the tempered radical, is talking about using Twitter to be able to make connections. And so how can we start to curate together with people outside the walls of the classroom using Twitter? I went out to Twitter, typed in curate, and found a whole bunch of resources that way. Okay. So anybody who's worth following on Twitter is a curator. I'm going to say that again, okay? Anybody who's out there who's worth following on Twitter is a curator. My sisters, I don't follow them. I don't care to. This is not a social thing for me. This is about learning, right? So I keep track of people who send me the links to articles that are really entertaining and engaging about my passions. I want my students to be able to do that. Okay? I really want my students to come to it in that way. 6th grade teacher. I want to say in North Carolina, but I might be making that up. Oh, no, I was right. Here he is. He just presented this last weekend at the Learning in the Brain conference in Washington, D.C., and he told this story about how he has his students in 6th grade, and they've created a Kiva lending club. And so Kiva is a website that allows you to microfinance. Okay? So what he said he used to do with kids is he would do a country project, and they would go to the CIA fact page, and they would get the list of the facts, and the kids would talk about that. He doesn't do that anymore. What he does is he has these kids come in his regular classrooms to this Kiva site. They created this presentation in Enomoto that was just fabulous. They went out to the community and said, give us some money, and then we're going to be the lenders. And we're going to lend to these folks who have put up in this site saying, please lend to me, I need to buy a cow. Or I need to, a woman in a certain country, and I'm trying to pull together this sort of weaving community, and I've got this, I need about $1,000, can you lend to me? In Kiva, each one of them is built around a story, and when you scroll down below the story, you have an embedded map, and you have all the facts about the country, and then you have the kids who, in these groups, have to look at and decide how they're going to lend the $25 chunks that they're given. They're each given a $25 pool, and they have to come together and decide and be persuasive with each other about who gets the $25 at that point. Well, part of them is what they do is they start to look at the information in the country, and they start to get more engaged in that, and they have to persuade each other. Really fabulous. They got so excited about this, and he had learned about this because Carl Fish had tweeted about it. Said, I'm doing this thing with this Kiva project. Do you want to be part of it? So they built that team. They have this club after school. And then what kids decided to do is with some of the extra money, they started to give gift certificates of $25 to other teams in the country who would be Kiva clubs. So even if those kids hadn't gone out yet to raise their own money, they had the $25 to lend. Isn't that neat? That is so amazing, all from one tweet. And I really do agree with that. I think that's fabulous. So these people are curating on Twitter. My 2 examples, I can get it done in 2 minutes. So folks might know the Cool Cat teacher, Vicki Davis. She's wonderful. She's been doing this flat classroom project for a long time now. So it's based on Thomas Friedman's The World is Flat. She had a teaching partner who was over in Beijing. They decided that they were going to have the kids come together and collaborate around a topic, usually a tech topic. The kids do these videos collaborating distance-wise, and then they have people judging. So on Twitter just a couple days ago, she tweeted, I'd appreciate if somebody would consider being a judge. There are some videos, we don't have enough judges signed up for this yet, so I click here, I get out to that wiki, and then I say, sure. In all my free time, I'd be happy to do that. But I would because I'm really interested in what kids are putting together. So down in here, you join the wiki, you decide, and this is Cogdogru Alan Levine, who is another fabulous guy to follow. He's amazing. And then you sign up for the one that you're going to judge for the contest. So I'm in this big old collaboration. Plus, then I get some good examples of student work to work with teachers here in Vermont. One more example. So I work with Penny Bishop. Penny, some of you know Penny at the Tarrant Institute. So she's a professor for middle-level teachers. She lives in Morrisville. So we work with teachers at People's Academy. Her sons go there. One was in middle school. He's in a 6th grade classroom. We're working with his teacher, Joe Spears. They're doing a volcano unit. So what Joe decides to do is he said, I really want collaborators and connections that are global, but I don't have time to do that. So I'm going to give kids roles. Alan November has a thing called digital learning farms. So it's linked on here, digital learning farms. And kids, we do is give kids roles in the classroom. One's a researcher. So remember the question was asked about delicious and following? You're the table who's going to have to answer that question by the end of the day. Okay, so that's how you assign those roles. Well, there's a collaboration connector. I might be making that up a little bit, but it's 2 C's. So Penny's son, I'm sitting in a meeting with Penny. He emails her, I really want to do this. I really want to make a connection with another teacher in another classroom in the United States around volcano unit, but I don't know how to do that. So that kicks in his personal learning network, who happens to be me because I work with Penny. And I said, I want to be able to see if I can help him find this. And no, don't even think to go to Twitter. I go to all these other places that I know, and I'm waiting, Skype in the classroom, I'm waiting to get an email back, nothing's happening. 2 days later, I think, I can tweet this. So I just put it out there. I don't know who's following me. Put it out there. Hey, I'm looking for a connection. A day later, Katie, my new best friend. Never met her. This is what she says to me. 6th grade teacher here. We're going to start a volcano unit next week. What do you want? Can we help? I'm like, oh, somebody can. I connected with somebody. Can you give me some more detail? Well, I was stuck because Alden was supposed to do this. And I wanted to give him the reins. I wanted to give it back to him to be able to make this connection. And what I found out with Twitter is that you actually have to follow the person to be able to direct message them. So I followed her, she followed me, but within 140 characters I had to explain. Al November, Digital Learning Farm, I work for the university, I'm with this. Didn't. So she kept saying, well, what are the goals? I'm like, the kid's going to tell you. So got the okay with the mom. They've made this exchange. They're emailing back and forth. Alden's running the show. Twitter. Who'd have thunk it? So the time is done, 2:31. I know there's no time for questions, and I apologize about that. If you want to put questions on the today's meet, I'll go back and take a look. You can also email me at any point there. I also have a UVM account if it helps you remember just with my name, so susan.hennessey@uvm.edu. Okay, so I'm happy to have a conversation in that way, and anybody who would like to join Mighty Bell, please email me and we'll set you up, and then maybe we can create some spaces around Vermont curation. Okay? Okay, thanks.